I'm your host, Taylor Ann Carpenter, and welcome to The Talk Chamber, a production of the Greater Memphis Chamber. The Talk Chamber is the podcast for the latest on chamber, economic development, and all things Memphis. Today's guest has an extensive background in economic development. Our guest is none other than the Greater Memphis Chamber's president and CEO, Ted Townsend. Ted, thank you for joining us.
Taylor Ann, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be the first guest on the Talk Chamber from our very own studio in our offices.
I am very excited to have you. I think the whole team is really excited to get this off the ground. We've all been working towards it.
Well, thanks for your leadership on this.
Of course. So I'm just super honored for you to be the first guest, especially because you do have such an extensive background in economic development. I think it's really important that we set the tone for what this podcast is and talk to someone like you. Mm-hmm. So could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into economic development?
Yeah, well, for me, really, it starts by being a small business owner because obviously we serve businesses in our community. The majority of those are small businesses. So I think that gave me a leg up into understanding what is important to a business, how they start, how they grow, how they earn capital and develop. And the company that I started here in Memphis back in 2005 was certainly something in the biopharmaceutical space that at the time didn't have access to a lot of resources. Because we were a startup and certainly in a life science space that, it wasn't a big area of focus or a well-defined economic sector of industry in Memphis at that time. So it was a challenge, to be quite honest. And I think that gave me a lot of perspectives. Obviously, entering into the recession, it became difficult. Fast forward to Governor Haslam getting elected, and one of my investors told me, hey, we've got a new governor. He is focused on entrepreneurship and economic development all across the state. And he's going to be reorganizing that department, and you would be a great fit. Why don't you go pay the bills a little bit and wait for the economy to return so that you can get back to your business? And I thought, well, okay, I'll consider that. And at the time I met his first cabinet commissioner for economic and community development, Bill Haggerty, who is now our U.S. Senator. And Bill had a background in entrepreneurship. And I just simply shared my story and that I expressed interest in joining his team. And thankfully, he said, we would be thrilled to have you. So I became the first regional director for the Greater Memphis region in this newly formatted economic and community development under Governor Haslam. And this began in 2011. So I dove full into this, both feet. And at that time, our region really consisted of course, Memphis and Shelby County and its municipalities, but also Fayette County, Tipton County, and Lauderdale County. So regionalism was introduced to me and how you build all of these ecosystems that are focused on job creation, attracting investment, helping existing businesses, and then marshaling resources to them. So I was fascinated with applying what I had learned as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and all of that acumen now into the public sector. And we approached everything that we did at the department with, the speed of business. So for me, I loved helping my community and my region, start to embrace these economic development principles that the governor and that leadership were rolling out. And again, we were a state that had double-digit unemployment at that time because we were still reeling and feeling the effects of the 2008 recession. So I felt an ownership, to help Memphis rebound from that. And, as I got into that, we had some successes. One of my very first projects I worked in economic development was the international paper retention and expansion. That was a big, big project to work. And one of the other early projects I remember was Nike's expansion, which now, fast forward, that's the largest distribution logistics center in their footprint in the Western Hemisphere. So I had a lot of really great exposure to business development and the core of what that represents. Again, serving existing businesses here, but then I was part of a team that also met with prospective companies that were considering Memphis and the surrounding areas. So that was an educational process for me, and we had a lot of success here in Greater Memphis. I fortunately got recognized for that work, and Commissioner Haggerty at that time promoted me to assistant commissioner, and so that just increased and deepened my exposure to all that department did. So when I started commuting to Nashville as an assistant commissioner, I then had strategy for the department. So essentially it was 5 disparate divisions that I then began having the responsibility for, which included federal programs, small business, our innovation platform, our research, economic research, our rural programs. So that really gave me a well-rounded knowledge of what economic development looks like now at the statewide level, not just in Greater Memphis. And I ended up becoming Bill's chief of staff, and then he left after the reelection. Randy Boyd came in. I became the deputy commissioner and chief operating officer. So I was running a $500 million state agency that was focused on economic development. In that span of time, the state won State of the Year in economic development back-to-back years. So that's like championships that you win back-to-back. Yeah, it was hard to do, but we did it twice, and it really, you win that because you have announced major projects that culminate with thousands and thousands of net new jobs and capital investment coming into the state. So I loved that work, and all the while I wanted to take everything that I had been accumulating in terms of knowledge and skills and networks and eventually bring it back here to Memphis, my hometown. I never left. I never moved to Nashville. So I would commute up on Mondays and back on Fridays. I did that for 5 years, and I loved the work, but my heart and my home was always Memphis.
What do you think the common thread in all of those jobs are? What do you think they all kind of had in common?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing was the focus on business growth. And what are the elements and key ingredients that must exist for businesses to thrive, no matter the market they're located in, right? And those markets or geographies each have different challenges and threats, if you will, that those businesses face. So it's diagnosing that and problem solving, and then again identifying resources that can be deployed so that those challenges are eliminated. To me, that's the common thread is this relentless focus on maintaining and growing exponentially, ideally, that business growth, no matter the challenges or opportunities, the pain points that are faced. Well, you know what? That didn't work, so let's develop this new solution, or let's provide this new funding resource or grant. Whatever the case may be, that's what we were focused on as a state. And that's, again, I focused on that just with my own company, is how do I grow my company? And then I certainly translated that into the public sector. And we're doing that here at the Chamber each and every day. We're focused on how can we drive business growth, because we know when that happens, jobs are getting created, capital is getting invested. It's attracting the multiplier effect of those jobs and capital, and it grows the economy. And we've seen explosive growth over the last couple of years, as you know.
So you mentioned previously that you are a native Memphian, and that's something you and I have in common.
Mm-hmm.
I love it here, and I love just the city and the culture and just what we stand for. Has growing up in Memphis shaped how you do your job, how you approach making Memphis greater, and how did it do that?
Yeah, well, I'm both of my parents were born and raised here. Multi-generational Memphians on both sides of my family. I happen to be born in Biloxi, Mississippi. My dad served in the Air Force, so I was born at Keesler Air Force Base. But I had some health challenges early, and my dad actually changed his career to go into recruitment so that we could get back here closer to St. Jude. I'm fine. Obviously, I'm still here, thankfully. But that was how we came back home, and I wasn't even two. So to me, my home, everything that I identify with is Memphis, this area. So, I think really what has defined my belief system as a Memphian is recognizing early how there's this almost a culture of, well, we get close, but something happens and we don't quite get to that championship. And we resign ourselves to that. But for me, I've got this innate drive and expectation that that's not good enough. We're Memphis. We deserve all of the trappings of success. And that's not just for me. I want that to be shared and celebrated by all of us, because I think, any listener to this is going to recognize that when the Grizzlies are doing great, the whole community is behind it, and we're all cheering for them. And so the chamber and businesses and the business community, I think, deserve the same amount of cheering and rooting and support, because when we win, that's something really special. So for me, I think that's kind of the big driver, is to break down those systems that don't believe, and creating a confidence level in just the results. And sometimes you have to show the community that it can win before it believes it can.
I completely agree. I mean, like I said, born and raised here, and I just love Memphis. I think it's such a unique city. It's got so much to do, so much to see, people to meet.
Well, I'll put it this way. Growing up and all throughout my life here, I feel like there is nothing that can't be accomplished in this city. Despite that thought of, well, we get close, but not all the way. I think there's a tremendous energy and vibe around, hey, all things are possible here, though. We can hustle and we can earn and get there. So to me, that, I believe, is really what drives us each and every day. It certainly drives me, is just there's no limit. When we put ourselves together and we come together as a community, anything can be overcome. And obviously we've met great challenges in our history, but we have overcome each and every one of those. And you have to ask yourself, well, why? And I think it's the resolve of our citizenry, and that even if we take a blow, we galvanize ourselves and we cheer each other on, and it's not divisive, it's constructive, and we build upon that.
It takes that passion and that drive to build a community and build a city that is great. And I think that that's crucial to a role like yours, working at the chamber, is having that drive and having that connection. You want your friends, your family, people who, follow you on social media, to see that Memphis is great and there's so much here, and that it's your home, but it can be theirs too.
Yeah. I want to create that FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like, what is going on there? And for expats, people who have moved away from Memphis for whatever reason that might be, for them to see us in headlines in positive ways, to say, man, I need to get back there. I don't want to miss out on what so special that's occurring right now in my hometown, my city. And regardless of where they are in their careers or families, we hope that we create that type of suspense that drives them to come here. But then the same is true for everyone who is here already, that reinforcing nature that success can afford all of us who see this and say, I'm so glad I'm here in this moment. I'm not missing out. I'm a part of it, in fact. And that's really, I think, one of our roles is to drive how people can define that for themselves, that role in this special time, in this special moment for our city.
So you kind of talked about, Memphis, people saying Memphis doesn't have that, like they almost get success, but they just kind of fall short. But that's not true. We've discussed this. We've established that is not the truth about Memphis.
Yeah, well, I mean, FedEx didn't fall short. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital doesn't fall short. AutoZone International Paper. We were in Nashville last week. Listeners don't know this, but we did. And someone actually in a meeting, not in our delegation from Memphis, but actually pointed out so that everyone else could hear that, Memphis actually has more Fortune 500 headquarters than Nashville does. And it was like, really? Didn't know that. And they're like, yeah. And they're not even a Memphian, right? So a lot of entities and people they've taken that shot and they have won, and we're better for it. To me, I think it's a collective that we're trying to drive that expectation of greatness, that expectation of winning, and that culture of, driving growth that is met and felt by all people.
What do you think people are missing out on when it comes to Memphis? What do you think here doesn't get enough attention that we don't talk about enough?
Oh, there are so many things. I mean, we try to crack the code on this all the time because we as an organization, we're not only generating great content, but there's so much else out there too, whether it's last week TripAdvisor recognizing Memphis as one of the top destinations, Site Selection Magazine recognizing Memphis as one of the top 10 cities in the country for headquarter relocation. The accolades are there if we just inventory them and call them back out. And when we create that echo chamber of acknowledgement that we are receiving the recognition from a lot of different sources for a lot of different things, whether it's, Chez Philippe in the Hotel Peabody, that restaurant being recognized as one of the top hotel restaurants in the world, the top hotel restaurant in the country, by USA Today. I mean, those are the things that I just find fascinating. It's the did you know that we get the privilege of putting out there. And my hope is that our listeners and folks who look at our information will see those accolades and go, oh, wow, I had no idea that, we have more bike trails and running trails than anywhere else in Tennessee. I mean, these are things that the average daily citizen doesn't necessarily have at their fingertips. But if we can equip them with that, then I think it helps to establish self-pride of their community. But then the hope is that they call that out to a visitor to say, yeah, did you know this is something really special about our community and why you should, be happy that you're here and we love that you're here. So it has a lot of variations in application, but to me, I think there are so many right now that are very topical that have a wide range that we just need more and more people knowing what those are and then repeating them.
Right. And kind of along those same lines, what do you think business leaders and CEOs, whether they're already in Memphis or looking at Memphis or we're not even on their radar, what do you wish that they knew about Memphis?
I wish that they knew that they have a really strong, in fact, I've said this and I'll continue to maintain it. You have probably the most powerful business-led organization in the country that is so interconnected and supported with this focus and investment on a greater Memphis. Shared vision, shared goals, shared expectations on economic prosperity. Knowing that you're coming into that is really favorable and positive. I think it's also something that I'm saying more and more now is that, as you are here and looking to expand, or you're a business owner or a CEO, and you're looking to move your operation to Memphis, what you need to know is that you're coming into an economy that's not recovering from a recession or a pandemic. You're not coming into an economy that's simply stabilized. You're coming into a high growth economy. And our data prove that out. When you look at the gross regional product growth over the last couple of years, we eclipsed 100 billion in our GRP, which is gross regional product, as I mentioned. So we're at 102.9 billion annually. That's I think encouraging to businesses, operators, owners that are considering, should I come to Memphis? Really demystifying some of the negative perceptions that are out there with facts, data, and I did that just yesterday with a candidate. I was asked by a well-known entity here if I would be willing to call their finalist candidate who was considering whether or not to take this job opportunity in Memphis. And it's kind of non-traditional that a chamber president would reach out to a candidate finalist and say, hey, we want you here. But I did. I called them. And they're presently in Texas, and they're considering this move. And I said, look, we want you here, and here are the reasons why. And I was able to enumerate those. And then they had great questions about concerns, and I was able to address them. And they said, oh, I had no idea. And so you hope that you change that perception, and then that person's perception then is shared, and you have that great multiplier effect of it.
When we think of economic development, we often tend to think about attracting those new businesses and those new people. And business leaders and CEOs, as you know, they take into account various risk factors. Does the city have the resources and the partnerships that I need? Does the city foresee economic growth? Do they have what I need to benefit my business long term?
Yeah.
Because people aren't going to move here just to be here for a couple of years. That doesn't make sense for businesses, and all of that begs the question for us: where is Memphis going to be in 5 years? Yeah.
Well, I think for the decision tree, particularly for a prospective company looking to locate here or move here, expand, that decision tree is highly complex. I mean, these are, at the end of the day, they're very complex financial transactions that they're thinking about entering into. And you've got to mitigate as much risk of that as possible, down to, EBITDA level. When you're thinking about operating a business, can I operate a business in Memphis? What are those risk factors, and are there offsets to those risks that I need to consider? And so the chamber actually shepherds all of these prospects through that decision tree by plugging them into partners, resources, connections that allow them to not just envision what it takes to own and operate a business here, but will it succeed? And so you're building that confidence level in every phase of that engagement to get to that yes. And what we love to say is that, Memphis has that culture of yes. We get to yes. It isn't out of the gate no, or not yet. It is, let us find a solution because we want you here. We start with that. That's the very first thing. So, we have been recognized for that. We obviously, as a chamber, nationally, internationally, have won awards for our approach to economic development. and it's become best in class and recognized. So we replicate that model, we refine it, enhance it. And where that has taken us over the last few years is we've been really meticulously attacking this and going on offense. We're not just order takers. We are finding opportunities and we're recruiting those opportunities here. You last year saw record economic development announcements and growth from both jobs, over 3,800 net new jobs that we announced, to 14.2 billion. That's with a B. I didn't misstate that. 14.2 billion in capital investment from the private sector coming into our economy. And obviously the announcement of XAI and Colossus and the world's largest supercomputer, that is a catalytic, transformative moment for our economy, where we have always been recognized as a supply chain and logistics leader globally. We take that apparatus and the construct of what made us a global logistics leader, and now we suddenly add, well, we're a global tech hub as well. And that's where we're going over the next 5 years, is really solidifying, crystallizing this digital delta platform, where Memphis is the epicenter of that digital delta, where it then becomes recognized as a super region nationally, where global firms are locating into our region with significant operations that are diversifying our economy with really high-paying jobs. And for us, artificial intelligence now, it really, you could argue, the home of it and where it's being innovated the most is here in Memphis, Tennessee, with XAI's presence. That's phenomenal. I mean, we couldn't have said that a few years ago, but we've been building toward this moment. For me, I expected it, and the chamber expected it. And now we're in that moment. We are creating history, and that's just going to continue to exponentially grow as we're on the radar now for the entire artificial intelligence sector.
Right. And as we, keep digging into this digital delta and expanding the delta, what's one industry that you feel like could help define what the digital delta is and what that means?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to XAI. I think that really embodies what the digital delta is. It's a region transformed that, in its very basic architecture, is tech driven. It's innovation driven, and yeah, there are specializations. Tech is ubiquitous now with any operation, no matter the industry sector, whether it's manufacturing or finance or healthcare. But artificial intelligence is, I think, growing into that ubiquity where it is being applied naturally and daily and organically in all business operations. It's not just in the tech space, but you've got small business owners using AI to help advance their business plan. So I think that what drives AI, the business of AI, and to us, what's fascinating is the supply chain of AI. You can build a supercomputer. But what is that? It's a coagulation of parts. You're talking microchips or GPUs or servers, fiber, cooling systems, thermal equipment. I mean, the list goes on in terms of the types of businesses and those operations that support what it takes to build a data center or a supercomputer. And given the historical legacy of our logistics, we know that we can become a high-tech manufacturing hub that serves artificial intelligence. That is the digital delta. We want to see more dots on our map, our regional map, that points to these globally iconic logos that now suddenly have major operations in our communities.
And that's just what's so exciting about this time for the chamber and for the city as a whole is we are sitting here watching live an industry unfold in our city.
That's right.
And that doesn't happen every year. That's not something that everybody gets to experience.
No, it's not. And, it goes back to that FOMO that I hope we're creating, because this is truly a special time and moment. I have also said it this way, and this might resonate with some of our listeners, but everyone can recognize what Nashville has experienced. And I put it this way: look, Memphis's next 10 years will be what Nashville's last 10 years have been. And that tends to allow it to become more tangible. People have seen that. They know what that is and what it feels like. And we are just in that initial phase of explosive growth. And we hope that it's controlled and managed and implemented and applied in very thoughtful, considerate ways, so that we don't leave any aspect of our community behind. But everyone feels this huge wave of momentum, and you start to see exciting new developments, and that then attracts more investment and more, passionate beliefs of what Memphis is as a national economy that is, what we expect in the next 5 years is going to be one of the fastest growing in the country. And that to me is exciting.
So as we continue this forward-thinking path and creating a future-ready city, we look ahead at, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. But I think it's important for us to look back and just kind of reflect on what we have done in the past, whether that is in your career or in the chamber as a whole. So what is one lesson that you've learned in your time as CEO?
Yeah, well, what I've learned is that we should not have all of the answers. That, this is a coalition of the willing. And my job is, first and foremost, my role and responsibility as president and CEO is to support this incredible team that we have assembled. And each and every one of you and me, we're all dedicated to a greater Memphis. It's a shared vision, something that drives us each and every day to get up and come in here or out into the community to do the hard work. And because we believe that it's possible. And now we're seeing that it's possible. So, for me, that's what I've learned, is that, we can't approach this as an organization thinking that we have the answers, but we know that we can convene. We know that we can introduce ideas, but if they're not fully embraced by the people that we're serving, then they're not going to be adapted or adopted. And that is where there are disconnects. So I've learned that we have to make economic development what the businesses that we serve, what the communities, the neighborhoods that we serve, what it is defined by them. And whatever that success is in their own minds, how can we enable? How can we, again, like I said earlier, marshal those resources around them so that they can fully realize their dream? And, we had 116 ribbon cuttings last year, right? And to us, at the chamber, that's every ribbon cut is a dream realized. And that's what's so special about the work that we get to do. And it's not us driving that, it's us enabling it, it's us convening it. And sometimes, we're a bit disruptive and innovative in that space, and that's okay, because sometimes you need that shock to the system to say, well, you know what? We are the digital Delta, and we are going to go recruit tech companies, and they are going to invest billions and billions of dollars here. If I had said that, even a year ago, people would have looked at me funny. But now people say, I see what you mean. And yeah, we did do that. And now what I love is that people are asking us, what's next? Who's coming now? And now that you've set that mindset, it's how they envision themselves and their role in that. So for me, that's what I've learned as part of my job is to recognize that we can be a resource and a partner. We don't have to do it all. We don't want to do it all. And there's ownership in that. When that's shared ownership, the reward is much more fulfilling and truly felt by everybody.
Our goal at the Chamber is to drive the Memphis business agenda. Mm-hmm. And when we say that, we're not talking about just large companies. We're talking about those small companies, and then their ribbon cutting, and then that's their dream realized. They are opening their own storefront for this, pipe dream at one point, but now it's a reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a really important mindset to have as we do our work and as we think about what we can do to make Memphis greater. First of all, it's not all up to us.
No.
It's the business ecosystem. It's a group effort. But that it's every person. It's not just one person. It's the big companies, the small companies.
That's right.
The medium companies, the startups, the entrepreneurs. It's all of us.
Well, the 1,600 plus businesses that invest in our work, right? Their members, their investors, they're doing that because they believe in all of those things that can be accomplished, from, growing the economy, bringing in great jobs, having a world-class workforce, no matter the industry need, a business climate that is pro-growth. We all have those core missions that we focus on collectively, and that's powerful when you move all of those entities in the same direction at the same time. And that's what the Chamber does. It provides that community, that network, that connective tissue, so that an individual business can benefit from that. And again, we serve the full continuum of businesses, no matter the size. We want that, and we thrive off of that. And that's the having that thumb on the pulse of the business community through our interaction, engagement, and service allows us to identify those opportunities where we can, create new verticals for our economy or enhance and refine our focus on workforce development. So none of that's possible unless we're all together and we're talking through the challenges and really ideating on what those solutions need to be. And those solutions are best informed when they are driven and led by the business community that we serve.
It can be a little difficult at times. Every city has challenges, every business has challenges, but what drives you personally to keep pushing for the city's growth, and what keeps you energized in your role as CEO?
Well, for me, this team energizes me, and the businesses that we get to interact with excite me, and I love learning who they are and the why they started what they did, and that's, to me, that's the special sauce that we get the privilege to be exposed to is all of these different the kaleidoscope of businesses in our community that really make up our economy. So number one, just that innate curiosity about who's here, and then how can we serve you? That's what drives me. But I think also, like I said earlier, it's I want to see Memphis fully come to this realization that anything is possible, and everything is happening now because we expect it to happen. That is a vastly different position, I think, that we have had as a collective consciousness in the past. And now you're starting to see it. And yeah, you can call it swagger. We've called it the grit and grind. That's the process to get there. But the swagger is when you do, and you're comfortable with succeeding and winning. Everybody likes a championship parade, but if you've never experienced one and been a part of a team to have the honor of being the focus of a parade, you don't know what that's like. You aspire, you drive toward it, but unless you've experienced it, you don't really know what you're hungry for. And then once you do, man, you can't turn that off. And from my experience, having won State of the Year from a state level economic development perspective, I want that for this organization, because I know if this chamber wins Chamber of the Year, for instance, then, that means our economy won. And we've done some really special things to earn that recognition. So that translates directly into the benefit of the work that we get to do. And that's what gets me out of bed every day.
That's awesome. Yeah. Ted, our time is almost up, but I wanted to close with one question that I would love to get your thoughts on. So what is one thing that listeners can do to support the Chamber's mission, help Memphis thrive, and ultimately make Memphis greater?
I'll answer this a number of ways. One, believe in Memphis. Change that narrative. If you hear it being negative, change it to positive, because there's so much out there that is positive. Say it with conviction, back it with facts and data, which we as a chamber can provide you. So just turn to us. We've got a great website with all of that, memphischamber.com and memphismoves.com. So yes, believe it, say it with conviction, and engage. The more engagement and awareness and passion that can be expressed and seen by others, I think is how we can be supported. Because the more businesses that are aware of the work that we do as an organization that serves them, they then can become champions and advocates for that work. It's not champions and advocates just for the chamber. It's for Memphis. And when they can speak to what is possible here, and those testimonials stack up into chapters, those chapters then become our history. And we're writing them each and every day. So I ask and challenge everybody listening to this, what are you doing to make Memphis greater? And did you? And the answer to that for all of us each and every day before we lay our heads on those pillows should be, yes, I did make Memphis greater, and here's how.
Ted, thank you so much for joining me on the
Taylor
Talk
Ann.
Chamber. It's been great discussing with you Memphis economic development and just the chamber as a whole. So thank you again just for taking the time to do this.
Well, I've loved it, and thanks for your leadership in launching the Talk Chamber, and I'm excited to hear who you will have on next.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Talk Chamber today. We are so glad that you are here. To sum up what we heard from Ted, Memphis succeeds, and you need to believe it. If you enjoyed this episode or learned a valuable piece of information, share this episode with a friend or a few. Subscribe to the Talk Chamber to keep up with the latest on the Chamber, economic development, and all things Memphis. Follow us on social media at Memphis Chamber. See you next time.